Welcome back to the Matt Buff Show. Great to have you with us. We saw a story a couple weeks ago where this University of Virginia shooter was going around causing mayhem, and now he's facing criminal prosecution and all these things. And we just have to look at this as, oh my goodness, this is sad for the victims. This is a horrific thing. But what is going to be the political fallout? Well, we now know every time, unless it's a black on white crime, every time the Biden regime sees something like this, what they do is say, we've got to pass a law against assault weapons, which by definition, there is none. We have to stop gun violence, which that's not the problem. Guns don't get up in the morning and say, let's go shoot somebody today. Nope, they don't ever look at the real problem, but they want to take away your rights. Let's go to attorney Steve Baric, back on the Matt Buff Show, seasoned trial attorney with experience in business litigation, criminal defense, and election law. Steve, great to have you back on the show.
Hey, Matt, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you. I want to play a clip from you. Joe Biden, the first quote-unquote president to ever attend what they do with they call the Gun Violence Summit, where they have moments of silence. It's been going on for 10 years since Sandy Hook. And here's what he said, and I'll get your thoughts on the other end.
Even as our work continues to limit the number of bullets can be in a cartridge, the type of weapon that can be purchased and sold, the attempt to ban assault weapons, a whole range of things that are just common sense. Just simple common sense. But we did it before. You may remember. In the 90s, we did it with the help of the very people in here, led by Speaker Pelosi in the House and many others. And we did it, and guess what? It worked. The number of violent and mass murders were significant. A lot of people's lives were saved.
That's all lies. But the worst part about hearing Joe Biden talk is hearing him talk twice. And that echo in that room, we got to hear him say the BS twice because it reverberated off the walls. So it was not good. But the 1994 crime bill, all that did is lock up young black Americans. And everything he's talking about is just a way to get people to not be able to own guns without a major, serious, complicated process.
Oh, is that the 1994 crime bill that Joe Biden basically used to incarcerate a generation of young black men? You mean that crime bill?
That's right. Where he called him something about a jungle and predators on the street. Yep, that's that Joe Biden.
Right, the Joe Biden who's now a civil rights champion. Yeah, it's funny how things change. Yep, I remember that bill.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's saying it did great things, but I don't know, was he tired there or he just knew he was lying? Because it wasn't with any kind of conviction whatsoever.
Yeah, I agree with you. The worst thing, the only thing worse than listening to Joe is listening to Joe twice. Look, I think the thing is sadly for the country, we have a massive mental health issue in this country. I live here in California. I see the homeless everywhere. There's no plan to deal with this issue. You know, this young guy that was involved, the shooter in the UVA case, he clearly had mental health issues. He had talked about bullying. He had talked about several things on the bus that day, seemed extremely incoherent. It's unfortunate and sad that the Democrats are using this issue that's impacting Americans every single day for political purposes. It's just so unfortunate. I mean, we could address these issues and we could come up with real solutions if they were willing to speak the truth. And it's very, very sad.
It is very sad. I mean, when you look at this situation, this is a 22-year-old former UVA football player named Christopher Darnell Jones. He was taken into custody and be charged with 3 counts of second-degree murder and 3 counts of using a handgun in the commission of a crime. According to officials, Jones has reportedly opened fire inside a chartered bus carrying around 24 students and killing 2 students and injuring another 3, one whom died at the hospital. Before the incident, Jones had come to the attention of UVA's threat assessment team after a third party said that Jones had commented about possessing a gun. Allegedly, Jones was also involved in a hazing investigation of some sort. This investigation was closed because of lack of cooperative witnesses. And James was also reported engaged in a prior criminal incident involving a concealed weapon in February 2021 outside Charlottesville. You're an attorney. Maybe we should not be so loose on bail laws, or maybe not be so loose on sentencing guidelines.
Well, that's absolutely correct, Matt. You're right in your assessment. He also had another prior offense when he was involved in a hit and run type situation, a felony hit and run, which, I can read the lines, read between the lines. The only reason why someone flees in a hit and run is when they're more than likely intoxicated. So you have all the red flags of mental health. You have issues where he is carrying around a firearm on school. He has incidents of hazing. He has indicators of self-medicating with alcohol or substance abuse. This is an individual where there needed to be someone interceding in what was going on with this kid. He's on a school campus, which allows for more regulation of its students. So there's a lot of people who dropped the ball here. But look, to use this for political purposes misses the point. There is a way we can protect the public without trampling all over people's constitutional rights. It's sort of like COVID. This is what the left does all the time. Oh, hey, we have a public health scare. Instead of waiting to see and taking a rational approach, no, what are we going to do? We're going to lock everyone in their homes. And then, oh, by the way, when we have contrary viewpoints, we're going to suppress them on Twitter. This is what the left does, sadly. And this is where we're at, Matt.
Yes, it is. I mean, you talk about COVID, they're trying the same old garbage. But I like what Elon Musk said. About Anthony Fauci. He said, my pronouns are arrest Fauci, basically.
Right.
What they try to do, and it was prosecute Fauci, not arrest Fauci, prosecute Fauci. But what they try to do is a one size fits all. Oh, this guy over here is crazy. Let's take everyone's what they call assault weapons. The reason the assault weapons ban failed in 1994 because there's no such thing as an assault weapon.
Well, and also there are limitations on what the federal government can legislate because we all have rights protected under state constitutions as well as the federal. Look, I think, Matt, what your listeners need to understand is, and I read a story and it came out of England, and this is exactly where I believe the left is going to go, okay? In England, they started implementing, it was a small town, the first lockdowns based on climate change, okay? There was a senator out of Oregon that during COVID started to talk about this as well. And that's my greatest fear, because here's the thing with COVID, eventually there would be objective things that indicated that the disease was going away, right? When the tests were showing more and more negative. But with climate change, who knows, right? I mean, well, the science says it's the ultimate lockdown dream for the left. And I think what people have to realize is, look, yes, that we need to come up, in my mind, with a strategy to deal with mass shootings, meaning increased mental health issues, giving people the ability to lock down people for mental health issues like we used to do. What is more humane, to let people with extreme mental health issues wander the street, to be taken advantage of, to live on the street, or to put them in a facility where they can receive treatment and protect the public? We need to look at things like armed security on our schools to prevent school shootings. But there it without trampling people's rights. And it seems like that's the first place the left goes every single time. Hot button issue, let's trample on the Constitution. And that's what we have to be careful of. We used to govern with a sense of balance. We don't do that anymore.
No, we don't. And every one of your solutions you just said, not one of those infringed on our rights as Americans.
No.
If somebody is having a problem, especially if they're being reported, like, this guy threatened me. Can you take a look? Bring him in for an interview and see that there's something wrong. You can deal with it at that point. The reason we didn't have this problem is not because of more guns, is because we've gotten too lax on mental health. We don't have the white coats going and gathering somebody up anymore.
Right. Well, like, so for example, this student, right? If there was an indication that he had a firearm on campus, why wasn't he expelled? Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's supposedly a gun-free zone. Yeah.
right. But why wasn't he expelled? I mean, if, on school campuses, especially like a school like UVA or a private school, the university can implement their own rules and regulations, okay, to protect its student population. And why, if they knew he had a firearm, why wasn't he expelled, or why wasn't there a process that was implemented? I have my ideas why. And so they let him continue to interact with other students, and look at what a terrible tragedy occurred. So we need to start governing with common sense and not worried about political correctness.
No, that's an excellent point. Steve, how can people follow you? Because they need more common sense out of California, and we need more people to listen.
So they can go to my website, www.bariclaw.com, or they can follow me on Twitter at SteveBaric19. And I'd love to hear more from your listeners, and I love being on your show, Matt.
Yeah, you got this awesome picture on your website, like you own the court. I love that. And if you guys need legal help, you got to contact Steve, because he actually follows the Constitution, criminal defense, business litigation, and election law. Really great to have you to discuss this important subject, because before we even had you booked, there's right after we had you booked, there goes Joe Biden saying, we need to look at an assault weapons ban. And all that does is hurt people that had nothing to do with the UVA shooting. That's the point right there.
It's true. I mean, so I had a roommate in law school, and he was from a town called Tehachapi, which is up in the hills by Bakersfield. A lot of hunting. And I grew up in the city, so I wasn't really exposed to gun ownership. I've always been a big Second Amendment guy, but I don't personally own one. But my experiences with people who are hunters, people who are good private citizens who own firearms, they're the most responsible people as it relates to firearms that you'll find, because they understand how serious gun ownership is, and they take it very, very seriously. And so my experience with good people who own firearms, who don't have mental health issues, we need to look after their rights. What we need to do is protect the public from people who shouldn't be owning firearms as it relates to, because they have mental health issues or whatnot.
Yeah, that's a different scenario. But the Heritage Foundation, Steve, on that point, they have a database of how many times a lawful gun owner has intervened in a situation and saved lives.
Right.
And it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. And they have a database. Every time they get a report, they verify it and put it in the database. So it's pretty cool stuff how they don't report it in the news, but there's always a lawful gun owner saving lives on a daily basis in this country. And that's an important thing. So if you take away the lawful gun owners, the criminals thrive.
You're right, Matt. That's what I was saying. We need to govern with a sense of balance. We used to do it all the time. Somehow we've lost that ability.
We certainly have. Steve Baric, thank you for joining us on the show. We really appreciate you.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, we'll be back on the Matt Buff Show. You stay with us.